Hey everyone, it's me, Flaro Spider, and today I'm going to be doing my review for The Flash Season 8. And sorry that this review came a little later than I thought it would. It's just, well, Spider-Man stuff. And now that I've already reviewed The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I'm gonna do Homecoming and Far From Home in my next two videos. But anyway, in today's video, I'm going to be, talking about Flash Season 8, starting with Armageddon, since this is the first season, not only The Flash, but the entire Arrowverse to ever have 3 graphic novels. And for Armageddon, it kinda has 2 villains, that being Reverse Flash and Despero. In my process of elimination, I'd say Despero is the true main villain, because, well, he was the main conflict of it all, while Reverse Flash was just in the background and was only the main villain for part 4, but then for part 5, he clearly needed help, and Despero was still the primary antagonist. Anyway, let me just tell you what Armageddon is about and my opinion on it. So, the story is that Barry notices Despero already showing up, who's an alien from the planet Kalanor, and is also from the future, 2031, in a timeline where, according to him, the Flash destroyed the world, which created Armageddon, so he went back in time to kill the Flash before it happens. So then Barry gets help from other heroes like the Atom and Black Lightning, along with Mia Queen's Green Arrow, to take him down. But then he eventually finds out there are some changes happening where Joe died, and he's noticing on the news that he's seeing himself go crazy in destroying Central City. But then he gets sent to the future, 2031, and notices that Reverse Flash was behind it. Like Season 5, where he was like, "It was me, Barry." Which, another problem I have with this season is how they never have Thawne say, "It was me, Barry." But thankfully, this season otherwise saved the show, because, well, not only for the good parts I'll talk about in Armageddon, which is, well, almost all of it, but also, well, graphic novel number 6, Death Revisited, and graphic novel number 7, It's All Negative, were both great in my opinion. But anyway, back to Armageddon for now. And so then Barry finds out that Thawne went back in time to kill Barry as a child, since after the events of Season 7, he knew Barry was faster, and he thought the only way to surpass him was to become him. So Thawne made all of those changes where he got Iris to fall in love with him. He became the Flash, killed Joe, and then in that timeline, he managed to make his own version of Barry that was Reverse Flash. And because, well, like he says, since every hero needs a villain, he created that too. And then Barry starts to get erased from existence, so he gets Damien Darhk's help, and then him and Thawne start racing across the world, which it turns out when Despero was talking about the Flash destroying the world, it was apparently Reverse Flash who had already become the Flash in that timeline. But then Barry apparently reset the timeline and stopped Thawne from killing him like he did. Well, he's the same future Barry we saw him do it back in Season 1. But because of that, Thawne started to get erased from existence after, well, the timeline was fighting back. So then he asked for help, and then after deciding to save his life by getting rid of his speed, Despero wasn't happy about it, and then decides to destroy Central City so that Thawne will die and the rest of the world will be safe. And what are my thoughts on all of this? It was a drastic improvement from Season 7 for sure. The only problems I do have, well, I like Barry and Thawne's new suits. Well, Thawne, that might be a hot take, but I still like the old suit better, although it's what we got from the comics. And Barry finally got the gold boots, which, if you ask me, he really just should have got them back in Season 6, when he first got that suit. Oh, that reminds me, I should do a ranking on the Flash suits. I've not done that yet, along with finally an Arrow video, which would be my ranking on the Green Arrow suits. But anyway, this arc was so much fun. My only problems with it were, well, a bit writing choices here and there, like in Part 5 when Joe told them not to kill Thawne because he's a police officer and he shouldn't let people die. Even though back in Season 2 he was shooting at Harry because he thought he was Thawne. So I don't know why they did that. But Despero was a great villain, since he was actually very interesting, and apparently from what we know, he thought he was doing what was right, but he was killing to get what he wanted, so that's why he was banished from Kalinor and lived on Earth as his home, which is why he didn't want Earth to be destroyed. And then, well, I just think if we saw his origin story, that would have made him, it would be awesome, considering how both him and Deathstorm really are easily the best villains we've had since Bloodwork, and huge step up from the Speed Force. And, well, I also just thought that the final fight between Barry and Despero was awesome, despite, well, the CGI could have been better for it. Those are just nitpicks, though. And, well, obviously, an overuse of Thawne. I understand he's one of the main villains for this season, don't get me wrong. And I mean later in the season. I don't mean Armageddon. But him overshadowing the main villain, someone else who's already the main villain, where it makes him look like the main villain. Another thing I didn't like about Season 5. So, I'd say Armageddon was almost perfect. 9.9 or 8 out of 10. And now let's talk about Death Revisited, which is graphic novel number 6. But before I get into that, there was an interlude this season, which was Interlude 2, which was 2 episodes between Armageddon and Death Revisited, first being an Impulse and Excess episode that I liked, and then a Goldface episode, which was weird, but Death Revisited, I think, is easily the best graphic novel we've had this season, and I like Deathstorm just slightly more than Despero, and I almost thought I liked him more than Bloodwork, but, well, let's be honest, Bloodwork's got a better rivalry, even though what makes Deathstorm interesting is how he started off as this black flame who was killing people until he had this black skull that looked almost a lot like Black Racer, and Caitlin was convinced that it was Ronnie, so they try to help him, and he showed up in the form as Ronnie, but turns out he was manipulating them to get what he wanted, and that's how he became Deathstorm. And he turns out he's a demon from a dimension far from hell, well, further than hell, and he's been alive for like 1,000 years. And he wanted Caitlin to become his bride since he felt lonely in his dimension. And he feeds off of grief, and that's what makes him stronger. And I just thought Deathstorm is by far the scariest villain we've had on The Flash. Like, even scarier than Zoom, while obviously Cicada and Bloodwork were pretty intimidating too, while Savitar also had his creepy moments. But I would really like if for Season 9 we can explore a bit of Deathstorm's dimension, because, again, both him and Despero are really interesting, and I think this arc is perfect. And then Caitlin and Frost had to merge back together to become Hellfrost to take down Deathstorm, but then she killed Deathstorm, which ended up killing Frost as well. And then there was Interlude 2, which was 3 episodes, but first of it was Frost's funeral. And honestly, if this Death Revisited arc was its own season, I would have had that episode as included into it, since, well, it's an epilogue, basically. And I personally see no flaws with this arc at all, while the other two bring this season a little bit down for me. You'll kind of know in my ranking, but like I said, those are just nitpicks, and I still think this season is great start to finish. And now finally, let's talk about graphic novel number 7, It's All Negative. And this may be the worst graphic novel we've had this season, but it's still great. Because it's what Season 7 should have been, where the Forces storyline in the comics had Zoom as the main villain, who killed all the Forces to take their powers and create the Forever Force, which is kind of what this arc was, except this time it was the negative forces, and Reverse Flash took all of them to become more powerful. But I like the idea of the negative forces, although we didn't get the Forever Force. Maybe we'll get the Forever Force in Season 9, though. That would be great. Or maybe a negative Forever Force, but I'm gonna wait for Seasons 9 or maybe 10 for that. And funny thing, this was actually going to be the final season, which is why Season 8 had the finale that was like that. Except they obviously had to change it for reasons that are understandable. And this arc has, well, like 4 villains, Reverse Flash again, and the negative forces, that being negative Still Force, the negative Strength Force, and the negative Sage Force. And I would easily take out the negative Strength Force and the negative Sage Force, because out of the 3 negative forces, the negative Still Force is the primary antagonist, but even he's not the main villain. It's Reverse Flash, because he was the final battle, and he got all of the negative forces, and which were just playing a role in the story. And I also liked that we got to see Matt Letcher's Reverse Flash again, even though he wasn't Reverse Flash anymore, because after Legends of Tomorrow Season 7, he got resurrected by the Time Wraiths, which, good to know that the Time Wraiths are still alive after Crisis After All, which, another thing Season 7 was disappointing, because if you're going to have the Speed Force as the main villain, how come there were no Time Wraiths? While Black Flash hasn't showed up since Season 3, so it's safe to assume that he is dead. And I mean Black Flash, not Zoom, because we've seen him in Season 5. And by the way, Interlude 3 had an Still Force episode, which was setting this up, and also it even had Zoom and Godspeed in a new 2024 newspaper, which, good to know, Zoom and Godspeed are coming back after all. And they might be big bads for Season 9. But we'll just have to find out. Maybe Season 10. There's got to be some storyline with it. And then this story, though, is the negative forces have been wanting revenge against Barry after taking the negative speed force away from Thawne. So the negative still force kills Thawne, but uses that to sacrifice the other Thawne from the Legends of Tomorrow because of Flashpoint, to bring the other one back so that he can get his speed. And I just really liked what they did here. And Mina Darwin is a character from the comics, and so it was good that we brought her here. Hopefully there's Max Mercury comes to the show, because he's very important in the Flash comics, and so that would be great. So my only negatives with this arc is how there's also this one episode with Allegra. It started off, it was sure part of this arc because, well, Barry knew that there was a speedster running around, so he assumed it was Thawne, but it was actually Mina. However, it was mainly focused on Allegra and a couple random villains from Season 6. Which is why I was surprised I actually liked this arc overall, and because the last 3 episodes were great. So, what are your opinions this season? Did you love it like me, or did you think it was just as bad as last season? And also, another thing I forgot to mention, Chillblaine is actually watchable this season, and I actually like him. But it is setting up a few storylines that now that Thawne is dead, the negative forces will be finding a new avatar for the negative speed force. That could be Red Death, but I know it's not going to be Red Death because I lost faith in it. And then also some Blue Crystal, which I don't know why it would be anyone else but Cobalt Blue, but with the Flash, anything is possible at this point. However, we do know that Bloodwork is returning next season because there's a comic where Bloodwork escapes Argus, and it says to be continued in the Flash Season 9, and Eric Wallace even confirmed it was canon as well. So, finally, Bloodwork is returning for Season 9. He might be the main villain, one of them at least. So, I don't know what else to say. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you're new, and comment below any video ideas you got for me in case I run out. And also make sure you just subscribe to my channel. I don't know what is it with me losing subscribers a lot. I have 189 now, but I had 190 at highest, so it turns out I went from mixed opinions on Spider-Man 3 to people not liking my Amazing Spider-Man review for some reason. Although in my next two videos I'm going to do my reviews for Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home, so get ready for that.